Now, in Talk of the Nation tonight, we focus to one of our stories earlier aired about Parliament suspending the nomination of candidates who are vying to represent Uganda in the East African Legislative Assembly. Now, the notice was issued drawing mixed reactions from some of the candidates who had earlier been successfully nominated by the NRM Electoral Commission this week. Now, the party's electoral body had cleared over 30 aspirants to compete for the 2 available slots at the regional parliament. And now joining me in this conversation is Thomas Ainebyoona, one of the aspirants, to understand this new development and the general picture of Uganda's aspirations in the regional parliament. Good evening to you, Thomas, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, madam, and good evening, viewers. Good evening, Ugandans, as well as East African community.
Okay, I am sure you're aware about this development, and would like to know what was your immediate reaction to the statement of postponing the nomination of the members that are vying to represent Uganda at the East African Assembly.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I don't want to see it as if it is a negative issue. I strongly believe that it is necessary to reorganize ourselves. The parliament is very right, the clerk is very right, to organize himself so that they can prepare a transparent elections that may be. Because I understand that on the side of the party, it had not yet carried out elections. So if the elections are not yet conducted, you cannot get the flag bearers that you will send to the parliament.
But they went ahead and nominated you.
Yes, they nominated us.
Why take a step forward when you have not yet completed the other step?
Of course, you see, our nomination, the clerk set a date before the date for nominations was set on the side of the party. So the party side conducted nominations, are waiting for the election date. Therefore,
Which is the election date?
We are not yet sure of the election date from our party. Therefore, I am very sure that since this side has been suspended, the NRM Electoral Commission will prepare the date for elections. Then, when the elections are being conducted, then the Secretary General of NRM Party will endorse the 2 candidates that will have gone through from primaries. Then those 2 names or those 2 candidates will be sent to Parliament, who will be endorsed. And those ones will compete on the national elections.
Well, there are some members that are not
Parliament.
There are some members that are not actually in agreement with this arrangement, and they're citing things to do with the credibility of the entire process. What do you have to speak to this?
Of course, I don't see it a challenge as well, but I strongly believe that they were following the right procedure because the communication came from the Speaker of EALA Parliament. Therefore, I don't see any challenges that may be. But it's an opportunity to us because we are going to prepare more in relation to the final elections.
Okay. Now, the party is supposed to elect 2 MPs to fill the vacant positions that are 2, actually. But we are saying that there are over 30, aspirants. Why are we witnessing such a huge number of candidates expressing themselves for a position that only requires 2 candidates?
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, Ugandans have started understanding what is happening in the East African community. That's number 1. And now it demonstrates that NRM as a party stipulates democracy, where each and every person can compete and is ready to represent Uganda. Therefore, it is a healthy competition. Because every person in this country, or most of the 37 people that have contested, that have been nominated, can every contribute something to the entire East African community.
And now looking at all those 30 candidates, why do you believe that you are the best to represent Uganda at the East African Legislative Assembly?
Well, this is obvious because, first of all, I have a background of petroleum governance and policy, of which it is training at the moment. Therefore, the resources that we have in this country, in Uganda and actually in East Africa generally, need someone like me who is very articulate, who is understanding the fundamentals of East African community. In addition, I subscribe to major principles of NRM, looking at patriotism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and democracy. Therefore, my ideology makes me credible to represent Ugandans in East African Parliament.
Now, Uganda has had representation over the years in the East African Parliament. What do you think this time around is the most critical issue that perhaps needs to be addressed as far as Uganda is concerned in the region?
First of all, we need to look at job creation for the youth. That is very, very important. It is a cross-cutting issue, but at this time it should be addressed.
How? Because it is a song that we have been singing for the longest time.
I understand. I understand it is a song, but at the moment, this is what should be talked about eventually. Because if you can look at East African community, jobs for the youth is a critical, fundamental issue that should be addressed. Therefore, we need to advocate for youth employment across over the continent. Actually, not only East African community, but we still have the same challenge. In addition, we need to talk about the cross-border trade. The cross-border trade is not yet clear because it is not easy for us Ugandans or maybe from Tanzanians to come and trade here in Uganda. We cannot trade from South Sudan. You know what happened in South Sudan? Even the compensation is not yet clear. You know, most of the Ugandans lost their goods from South Sudan. They lost a lot of money from there. It has not been worked on. Therefore, these are the things that we should talk about. We need free movement of people from place to another. In Tanzania here, you cannot cross when you don't have a passport. You must go with your with a passport. National card, national
ID. National
ID does not work. Why? This is East African community, and there is a logo on our national ID, East African community, EAC. What does it? How does it help us? Before we get the same policies, actually, same policies harmonization of policies should be talked about, should be concentrated on, so that we can have similar goals. If we have similar goals, it is very easy for us to integrate. You cannot integrate when you have diverging policies.
Okay, let's now look at the East African community, which is part of the Greater African Union. Today we do see regional economic and political bodies like the ECOWAS, SADC, that are more vibrant when it comes to, African integration. Is the African Union being overshadowed, and what do you think can be done to change that situation? Not
really. It is not overshadowed because African Union is on a strategic role, whereby the organ is managing the entire Africa. But these other COESA and East African community, they are majorly concentrating on some category. Therefore, what has to be done, EU to be bigger or maybe to be soundful, it is to strengthen the institutions that are involved. The cooperation must be strengthened. When they are strengthened, it is going to be easy for us to integrate, all of us. I want to refer to a book of Kwame Nkrumah, Africa Must Unite. It is very clear that when Africa is not united, we cannot achieve our specific goals that we need. Because we cannot prevent, we cannot avoid, we cannot reduce poverty if we are not together. Because the movement of people from one place to another, the sale of goods from one place to another, we have to look at, for example, there is what we call African Continental Free Trade Area. It is very instrumental. If you don't unite, you cannot achieve that. And that horizontally and vertically can make us better. And to achieve the same goal is what we call socio-economic transformation for the entire goals of Africans.
Do you agree with a thought process from some people that for integration that you are talking about to take place, it starts with the people themselves to actually come together? Because as it is, East Africa or Africa, the continent, there is a lot of yearning of integration, but the continent or the region here is divided by, tribal, religious, and so many other things that they do not share common ground on. What is your take on this?
I do believe, but the solution is integration. Solution itself is integration.
Okay.
Because if we trade together, if let's say East African partner states trade together, we eat together, it means we are going to take away the issues of religion, the issues of maybe tribes, you know, then we shall be able to achieve the common goal of integration.
Okay. Well, thank you, Thomas Ainebyoona, one of the aspirants that is seeking or vying to represent Uganda at the East African Legislature.